So, I have one question about one of the titles in WWE. What's going on with the women's US title? It's in the hands of Julia, and she's being managed by Kiana James right now, which is kind of like a recently formed alliance, and I think that's cool and all, but what has happened to like anyone wanting to chase for that title? We're having Michin, which she's great as well, and I think she's had a lot of opportunities at this US title, can't lie. But it just seems like the US title is in orbit around a certain amount of people, and it hasn't really grown past that certain stage, and it hasn't seemed like an actual prize that people want to vie for. With everything on everyone's plate in terms of men's and women's divisions, I guess the US title has just been really slacked on, similarly to like the tag titles. But it's just annoying to see, especially with so much women's talent that could utilize that time really properly. And I think even the people that are involved currently with the belt should have a more tangible storyline than just wanting to challenge for it. Julia, being this heel opposite to Stephanie, should have a chip on her shoulder, since they kind of debuted in the same time and have had such close proximity, that she should have some sort of maybe jealousy angle or some sort of heel angle in that regard to maybe make Stephanie and Julia fight each other for the US title, elevating the US title in itself, because you now have Stephanie, who is still one of the hugest members of the roster already, against Julia, who is one of the top talents already and will probably be one of the top stars in the future anyway. So it's like you can kind of have that rematch that you had from NXT with the two of them, and you're elevating the US title, kind of like what's happening with the IC title between Becky, Bayley, and Lyra, right? You're elevating the title, as well as Lyra and Bayley and Becky have more context to their history and are throwing more wrinkles in their characters, which I feel like the US title is missing. I think people like Chelsea Green, Michin, and Julia are all amazing. Zelina Vega as well are all people who are talented enough and should be given proper storylines and proper context with each other, since they've been interacting for so long. And I think there needs to be some sort of like maybe faction or some sort of lines and stuff that happens on SmackDown for the women that's more than just validation for a championship match. Really thinking about what could connect all these people together in that US title division is really key right now. Whereas like in most other divisions, there are connections between everybody. Even like the tag divisions, you see connections between people, like how Grayson Waller is now with the New Day currently due to that A-Town Down breakup, right? Like there's constantly different minglings that affect storylines, and I feel like that thorough line isn't present for the women's US title specifically. Whereas like I said earlier, the IC title is extremely strong. The women's world title, despite current announcements, is pretty strong. The WWE women's title even now recently is pretty strong as well. So it's like I feel like the US women's title is really lacking in terms of direction. Unfortunately, almost all the reigns that have been with it so far, except maybe Chelsea Green's like initial reign with it and kind of the gimmicks that she would do, which she's kind of carried on regardless of having that title, it's been kind of underwhelming. And I feel like it should really be like how the IC title is. It's a launch pad for that great mid-card level or like upper card storyline that the women kind of need, since there's so much great talent overflowing the roster, right? Considering the fact that there's going to be NXT call-ups happening soon, and the rate of talent for the women specifically is just so it's insane, right, compared to the men, where it's like there are essentially packs of women ready to come up on the main roster who are like just as charismatic and will garner huge crowd responses. So it's going to be extremely competitive for all these women moving forward. I just hope that in that Triple H and co and everyone like working on everything behind the scenes is able to wrap their heads around it and really focus their time on elevating these belts. And I think with the women's US title, I'm hoping moving forward we see more of a definitive story and presence of that US title belt. And hopefully since Julia has it right now, maybe we really make a statement with her and Kiana James as a heel force on SmackDown with something. Maybe she attacks like a prominent star. Maybe she attacks like Alexa or Charlotte to cost them like randomly the tag titles, because Julia feels like she's not getting the presence and respect she deserves despite having that title and debuting on the main roster within this year. I think with the absence of Naomi, maybe they can reshuffle the cards and realize that they do have a heel champion available to really push forward. Let me know what you guys kind of think about everything. I do hope that going down the line there's more of a thread for these women at this point in the card too, because like people like Chelsea Green and Michin and Zelina have been putting in the work, garnering legit responses, and have made cases for themselves in the time that they've had, you know. So I feel like, you know, it'd be dope if we can really get some meaningful stuff with them it doesn't feel like filler.